All right, let's take a look at another sign here. And I'll start off by looking at this first line at the top here. It's probably going to say something about parking because there's this big P, which always means parking. Now, this first thing here, 거주자, I'd like to break this down by indicating that this verb here, 거주하다, 거주하다, means to reside, to reside. And I guess you could say to live, but it's specifically to live in a place. So it's very oftenly translated to reside, and 거주 just refers to residence, residence. Now 자, if you put this character 자 after some sort of noun form of a verb like this, and very commonly after Hanja words here in 거주, there's Hanja characters for these 거주. It indicates the person who does that particular thing. Now I have a Hanja lesson on that, and here's the one for cha, and this is the character for cha. And you can see here a lot of this is Hanja, so you might not know all this. But hak, that's the Hanja character for school. And if it's school person, well, that's a scholar. And this here is chemistry, and hwa, hak, the chemistry is the first two here. And if you say 화학자, well, that refers to a chemist. And it's the same thing all the way here. This is su, which means suhak, which refers to math, and suhakcha would be a mathematician. And this is shin, and shin refers to sort of believing something or trust, and shincha would be some sort of believer. Anyways, I talk about all these different things down here, and these are some that where the Hanja character is not introduced yet. So unjan is to drive, and unjancha is to be a driver. So that's what I see here, that 거주자, if 거주 refers to residence, 거주자 refers to a resident. Now, usan is another interesting word that I want to talk about for a second. Usan, and I didn't know this until a while ago, or I guess I should say, it took me a while to figure this out when I was learning Korean. Usan, there's actually two meanings for this word. And it's actually the same spelling and the same sound, but it actually has two different meanings depending on the situation. One of them is an adverb, and you put it in sentences, and oftentimes with adverbs, you actually don't even need the adverb in there, but you just sort of include it to sort of emphasize something or maybe to make, especially in Korean, you often see adverbs put in sentences to sort of tell the listener what's coming before you actually say it. It kind of gives some feeling to the sentence. So anyways, you can put usan in a sentence in Korean to indicate that something is going to be happening before something else. And for example, I could make a sentence that says usan, and right off the bat, if I'm a listener, I can say, oh, well, that he's going to say that something's going to be happening before something else. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to give feeling for, but Korean people have a lot of words that just denote feeling or sort of emphasize that a particular feeling in a sentence is going to come. So I could say usan 공부, which means study, 공부하, and then adding ki chun is something I talk about in a lesson later on in Unit 1. I think it's lesson 24. But this indicates before something. So what I'm saying is, and really I don't even really need this usan here, but I can just say 공부하기 전에, and I'll go dot 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 dot, because I don't need to finish this sentence for this lesson. But 공부하기 전에 would be saying before I study, assuming the subject is I back here, right? Before I study, and blah blah blah. Maybe I'll say I need to clean or something like that. So I can say, or I need to clean the house. 공부하기 전에 집을 청소해야 돼요. But what I'm saying is before I need to study, before I clean the house, I need to study. And this usan here, as I mentioned, just sort of indicates that something is going to be happening before something else. And you don't really need to include this, but a lot of times Korean people would include it just sort of for feeling. So in this case, it's an adverb. Another way that you can add usan is to have the meaning of the word priority. Priority. And in this case, it's a noun. And the interesting thing about this is even though there's two different words, and actually the sun the sun in both cases, this sun here and this sun here is actually the same Hanja character as you can imagine. It looks like this. It looks something like this. That's the sun, and it's the same sun that would be in Sanseng Nim. Sanseng Nim. It's this same sun here. Anyways, this usually refers to, it sort of means first or priority or foremost or something like that. But the u in each case, the u, this u and this u are actually different Hanja characters, and by that right, they obviously have different meanings, if they have different characters in them. But anyways, this word priority here, it's a noun and it can be used just like any other nouns, but oftentimes it's put before another noun, and this is another noun here, 주자구야, to indicate that it's a priority form of this noun. And that's, again, this is sort of describing this, and that's usually what adjectives do, but sometimes in Korean you see a noun describing another noun, and very similar in English. You can say, it's a school. This is just something random grammar here. It's a school. Okay, great. But what school is it? Well, it's a girls' school. It's a girls' school. And well, it's sort of a noun. A girl, of course, is a noun, and a school is a noun, and the girl's describing the school. So you don't need to be an adjective to sort of tell me about the upcoming noun. You could be a noun. You don't have to be an adjective before you. Anyways, that's what's happening here. We have a noun, which means priority, and as I said, priority is not always, but sometimes put before other nouns to indicate that this is a priority form of whatever this is talking about here. Now, 주차, here's the meaning that we probably already know coming into this sign because of this P. 주차 means, 주차하다 means to park, and 주차 means parking. Parking. And 구역 refers to some sort of area. And you'd often sort of see it, for example, you could say, if you were looking for the smoking area of a place, 흡연, and I'll talk about this in a second. 흡연 refers to the activity or to the action of smoking, and you could say 흡연 구역. 흡연 구역 would be some sort of the smoking area of a particular place. All right, now 지정하다, it says 지정되다, but 지정하다. Let me just first talk about this 정 here. This is the same 정 that you would see in common words, like maybe 결정하다. Same 정, and this sort of means to sort of decide or to set or to designate or something like that. And the Hanja character for that looks like this. Looks something like this, and I'm always afraid I'm going to make a mistake on my Hanja because I always say I'm not very good at it, but it looks something like this. So, and this 정 refers to decision making or setting or designating or something like that. And 지정하다 means to designate. To designate. But what we have here is we don't have 지정하다, we have 지정되다. So that the passive form of to designate would be, I guess it would be designated, not to designate. It's not somebody who designated, it was designating something. It's something that has been designated, and that's the purpose of adding teda to make a passive form of this verb. I talk about passive verbs, and I suggest you check out lesson 14 to see my discussion on passive verbs. And I add this letter here to sort of indicate that this verb, you can't just stick a verb or an adjective before a noun to describe it. You can stick a noun before a noun to describe it and just leave it the way it is, and that's because you can't really add anything to this noun to describe the next one. But with a verb or an adjective, if you want to describe an upcoming noun, you have to add a whole bunch of things to, well, not a whole bunch of things, but depending on the situation, there's a whole bunch of things that you could add to it, and this is one of the things to indicate that it was designated in the past, or it has been designated. It's not being designated right now, but it has already been designated. Or in other words, this is sort of indicating that this is in the past. And I talk about all that, this adding this or this to a verb to describe an upcoming noun. I talk about that in lesson 26. It's a very, very interesting and difficult concept that you need to continue to develop your Korean. But anyways, what it's doing is it's allowing me to describe this upcoming noun. So 차량, 차 just means car, but 차량 together, this means vehicle. Vehicle. So you're not just talking about cars on their own, you're talking about all vehicles. And man is a particle to indicate that you're referring to only this. So only vehicles. And I can even describe it by saying designated vehicles. And then 주차, we already know what this word means. This word means parking. 주차하다 means to park, and this would mean parking. And we're on this last thing here. 무단 refers to, it's very hard to translate just this by itself, but I would say it's doing things without permission. Without permission. And probably the most common place where you'd see this is in the phrase 무단 횡단. And 횡단 means to cross, and it's often used to cross a road. So if you say 무단 횡단, well, that's saying crossing the road without permission. And in English, we would just refer to that as jaywalking. But essentially what jaywalking is you're crossing the road without a green light telling you that you're allowed to go. So this 무단 is doing something, is put in a place to indicate that it's something that you shouldn't be doing because you don't have permission to do it. 주차, again, already indicates parking. So parking without the permission that you have to park there. It's the same 시 that is used to indicate time. So if you said, for example, if you said 7시, that would mean 7 o'clock. Or if you said, of course, 9시, that would mean 9 o'clock. It's actually the same 시 here, slightly different meaning and a different usage within the same meaning, but this 우산 here, it's two completely different meanings, and it's not even actually the same word. It's two completely different words. But what this is, it's actually the same word as 시 in this case, but it's just a different usage of the same word. So you're used to saying this 시 to refer to time, and actually it does refer to time here. But if you put 시 after some sort of noun form of a verb, and in common places where you would see this, I'll give you 3 examples. One would be, as I said up here, the word 흡연. If you put 흡연시, that refers to the time that you smoke, or when one smokes. Another common one that you might see is sort of saying 운전, and I talked about this before, meaning to drive or driving. 운전시. And this one here is 주차시, which is what we're looking at here. 주차시. It's referring to the time you smoke, or the time you drive, or the time you park. And a better way to describe all of this is to I would just say when. It's referring to the time in which this thing arises, or the time in which this thing is actually happening. Or in other words, when or if, you could even say if. When or if you smoke, or when or if you drive, or when or if you park. And if you wanted to finish the rest of these little clauses or things that I have here, is that when or if you smoke, you'll get a fine if you smoke in this area, blah, blah, blah. This might say, when you drive, 운전시, when you drive, don't drink alcohol, blah, 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 blah. And then this is what we're talking about here. When or if you park in this designated area without permission, well, blah, 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 blah. Well, what's the blah, blah, blah in this case? 견인하다 means to tow, as in towing a car. But 견인 would refer to it's the noun form of that, which is to tow. So, if we look at the whole thing, we have this area, and on this road, there's a road, and there's a parking spot here, and 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 a parking spot here. Parking spots all the way along the road. But above that, this big sign said, this is a resident priority parking spot. Only designated vehicles parking, or only designated vehicles can park here. If or when you park here without the permission, or without getting the particular license to park here, we will tell you. Well, that was fun. I hope you learned a lot. Like our sign videos? You can see all of our Korean sign explanation videos by clicking the link here. We also have a ton of videos showing various aspects of Korean culture, tourist areas, cuisine, and everyday life. You can go there by clicking this link here. You can also subscribe to our channel by clicking this button.